What's up, y'all? Kofi Kingston here, and I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks, depending on what that drink is, preferably non-alcoholic, you know?
How's it going? Celtic Warrior James.
Soda.
I would love to have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks.
Maple syrup.
I would never have a drink with Wrestling on the Rocks.
Welcome to the dive bar of the IWC. Welcome to Wrestling on the Rocks, episode 1 again. That's right. Every show is our first show because we can't get to episode 2 until we do episode 1 right, and we have not done that yet. With me today, we have a brand new debut on episode 1, no less. We have Mr. Digi. How's it going, man?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
I'm excited to have you on here. We met recently through Medusa. We got people in the chat over here. Let's see. Oh, good. I'm not missing the very first episode. That's right. Every episode is the first episode. Yeah, and you can go to wrestlingwrestling.com/shop for your episode 1 t-shirt. Yeah, I'm excited to have you on here. We met recently. I obviously have started working with Medusa. We've talked about it a couple times on here. I believe on episode 1 we mentioned that. And you mod for her on her Twitch. So we had a conversation recently about war games on her show, which also aired on her YouTube, youtube.com/Queen of Carnage. And I thought it was really interesting to me that after the fact, you said you'd never really been on a podcast. And I was like, really? Because you can keep the conversation going, and that's the first trick that most people get wrong is the conversation.
Yeah, I have the gift of gab, but I'm more of a fireside storyteller than, sitting around with, on a podcast. It's just me.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone's doing a podcast. We're just a couple of drunks on YouTube, so it's all good.
I mean, that's legit. I'm here for that.
Yeah, we are the dive bar of the IWC because at the end of the day, Digi, what we do here is we drink with our drinking buddies and we just talk wrestling and have a good time. And we remember that no matter how much we yell and scream at each other, we're still drinking together. We're going to have a good time. We're going home.
Wow, reminds me of it's like an Irish funeral. This is great.
It'll be great. It's going to be great. Digi, as is per use for episode 1, what's in your glass? What are you drinking?
I have Teeling small batch Irish whiskey. I gotta go light tonight, so to speak.
Yeah, take it easy. Take it easy. I have
Yeah.
I'm having some tea with a little bit of Trader Vic's. We've had this Trader Vic's in the house for a long time. It's macadamia nut liqueur, which we
Ooh.
got from producer lady was a Navy vet and stationed in Hawaii for quite some time. And that was something she came back with. And so we finally, for this holiday season, as a special treat, opened it up, and a little shot and some iced tea goes a really long way. I'll tell you right now.
Absolutely, and I am here for it. I'm part of the United States Navy. You know, and if it's one thing sailors know how to do, it's drink.
That's true. They stay wet.
Hmm. When you're out in the middle of the ocean and the only thing you can see is stars, time for a shot.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Let's start. So we don't always talk about, quote, the news. We've always put it in quotes because if you read up with any of the sheets, it's always rumor. It's always unless plans change. It's always this is definitively what's happening. And then a week later, actually something else is definitively happening. But something that did happen today that I do want to touch ground on because we have been very vocal on this show about our absolute love of Mandy Rose and the Toxic Attraction trio. And we've been speculating week after week, how long is this reign going to go? When's the right time to call them all up to the main roster? We're watching last night, Roxanne beats Mandy for the title. Me and producer lady are going, wow, that's a big move. And then producer lady asked me, she goes, so what do you think? Do you think they're going to just shoot them right up? And I was like, I could see them finishing the program and keeping Mandy out until Rumble. And I was like, but that is well over a month away. I don't know if you'd want to wait a month. And I was like, it does seem like a little bit of odd timing. And then we find out today, Mandy Rose was released due to her personal website. She has a fan website. It's not OnlyFans. It's actually her own
It's
.com.
like,
It's her name. So it's through
yeah, it's
Fan
like
Time, I believe.
MandyRose.com. Yeah.
Well, that was the thing that I caught me too, was that her name on a lot of her socials is Mandy Sachs because her name is
Hmm.
Amanda Sacca Mentino, I believe that's how it is. Something like that.
Yeah,
It's
something
an
a lot.
Italian name. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
Italian name. And I butcher it, but I did notice that on her fan site, it was Mandy Rose Sachs instead of Mandy Sachs,
Mhm.
and I was like, well, that's an IP potential issue.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would have changed. They decided to release her, and I think it was really shocking. I'm wearing my toxic hat in solidarity.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Like they kept Paige on for roughly 3.5 years doing her own gimmick, and she had way, way, way worse. So for them to take Mandy, who for all intents and purposes didn't hit her stride within the first 2 years when they put her up on the main roster, they take her back down to NXT, Toxic Attraction, really underrated faction, and they just let this magic go. It's a dumb move. It's like when they released Wyatt. This was a guy selling $3,000 belts, and they just let the guy go.
Yeah, it does feel really weird because we've talked about it here. In the last year, she's really solidified herself as a top woman that we were trying to figure out,
Yeah.
which title will she go for when she makes it up, It
Hmm.
does. It seems, yeah. I mean, I guess Bray Wyatt is probably the best comparison.
Yeah, like she kind of stepped into that. Like Mandy stepped into that role of Asuka, who was this, badass who went into the ring because for the most part, Toxic Attraction didn't need the distraction. It was there for necessary situations. It wasn't overdone.
True. They did balance that well. And I thought that she had done a really good job of finally finding that balance between being semi-sexualized and empowering herself through her looks, which are
Hmm.
undeniable, but also saying that that's not all she is. Because for a long time, the first
Yeah,
couple years, that's all who she was: the golden goddess, the god's gift to wrestling. I
yeah,
mean, but the whole thing was just that this is how she looks, and she's kind of strong. This was, I think, the best iteration of her, where it was such a good balance of look, I'm not going to deny that this is how I look and that I don't get some sort of a power or recognition from that, but it's also not all who I am. I can get it done in the ring, and I will every time. And like you said, she didn't have to cheat to win much. They did it from time to time. They did it to even the odds, but by and large, in all of her defenses, which was 10, she won with a clean victory just because she was the better woman that night, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously there's the kayfabe thing, but the character I thought was so perfectly built that I was like, this is ready. What are we doing? Why has she been on here too long? And then
It took and that's the thing that I've noticed with the creative direction, and this kind of segues into something that is brought to mind, but you know, she was essentially Corey Graves' idol, oh, she's hot, she's this, she's that. And I think that hampered her on the main roster, because if they would have allowed her to do this or work with that Sonya Deville badassery, I think she would have had a better push than just being a sidekick.
yeah.
But it revitalized her. Like, I can't really think of too many stables because, she could do it in the ring. She could look attractive doing it, but at the same time, you love to hate her. When she was being a bitch for all intents and purposes, you believed it.
Yeah.
And it was complete counter character, and it was almost as if they took into consideration everything they had her do on the main roster and then went, okay, so she's had enough of that shit. Now she's coming over to this side, really embracing that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a bummer, dude. The other thing that's kind of unfortunate for WWE, but maybe not for us as a fans, is they've just released somebody ready-made. Like you had said with Bray. It was the conversation was, where's Bray gonna show up, and who's gonna take the most advantage of how perfectly built this character is, and everyone's ready to be behind. Mandy can show up anywhere, and she can show up on top, and people are gonna buy it, and they're gonna be behind her. I did see someone tweet that they think that she could make a great true heel in AEW. I think that it would take a little bit of work. I think she's gonna, if she were to pop up in AEW, she's gonna be a fan favorite right away, because she's gonna be the one that got away from the evil empire.
I think, and hot take, but I don't think she should go to AEW. I think she should go to Impact and hook up with some of the ladies there and go as a faction against the Dolls. But I'm biased. I love me some Impact. It's a guilty pleasure. But she could be top fish in that conversation, have a good locker room to support her, rebuild that, and then maybe down the road, never say never. Then she's got all the world to go.
Yeah. And I agree with you about them holding on to other talent. Some people have brought up some of the talent who have had different convictions of things, have allegations of things. It does look like, as we're going to talk about a little bit, I believe the rumor is that Matt Riddle was written off due to a second failure on a drug test. The fact that a lot of these people are able to hang on for these types of transgressions, but her posting slightly more scandalous, and they would like photos behind a paywall. I mean, I get the .com thing, if I'm being honest. Like, you put Mandy Rose in your .com, that's kind of their IP, so it kind of lends to make it look like WWE endorsed. But I do think that firing seems a bit heavy-handed versus like, hey, let's pull the site down. You need to rebrand the .com. You need to consider if you like. I could understand some form of a suspension more than a firing. Like, what?
Yeah, like that was too far, in my opinion. And she deserved better. Like, I think, especially with, some people see NXT as a demotion, and it's not. If anything, it's a different style. Like, something you would see more in NXT is a Joshi Japanese style, hot pass back and forth, maybe a little bit of rest, but it gives the crowd enough time to breathe. You got a different style of wrestling, which she adapted to amazingly. that not many people can. Like, as an example, New Day. They walked in there, they pulled a hell of a match. They were able to do so much more, and fans there took notice.
Yeah.
Uh, Even with current product, but like they just took $1 million cash bag and set it outside the door. I expected Toxic Attraction to show up, and go, "Oh, look at you. You've got these 3 children over here. Bailey, you're old news. You're whatever." And they could have really cemented an NXT rivalry, showcased the talent that came from it, and made it a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Do you think JC and Gigi are going to have an issue finding their footing after this? Because to be
no.
honest, I think that their characters and their team were really relying on Mandy to be the mouthpiece. I don't know that we've heard enough from them to. Do you think that they forged enough of a character and enough of their own mouthpiece that they're going to be able to just kind of hit the ground running?
I'm going to point back to a segment they had when there was that tag team whole thing. And they were outside ready to get into their car, and they went face to face with the Hall of Famer Alundra Blaze.
Mm-hmm.
And they took the gimmick. They did not have Mandy Rose. They schmoozed into it, and they went with somebody who's worked with the likes of Paul Heyman. And you could tell there was no scripting involved there. That was show us what you got. And I think they could carry it. I think they could show up in like some tag team battle royale at any point, or even go singles. I could see singles.
I could see singles for Gigi more than JC. I think JC's a little more of the softer character as far as like being totally fleshed out. She's the one who seemed to have had the hardest time finding her place in it. And I think as a team, they work very, very well together. Gigi, I think, could just turn it up a little bit. JC, I think, would have to almost redefine herself if she were to go single.
Well, she's kind of got an open spot right now because with Liv Morgan, Roxanne just got the title. So, I mean, that would kind of lend to that too. JC could work with Mandy Rose as being that secondary tag partner and kind of work a program there too.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, either way, it's a bummer to see Mandy go. Like, we've been so excited and so high on her. I mean, she was one that too, like, so in like a week or two, we're going to do our end of the year Boozy Awards. Ooh. And Mandy was kind of like one of my top runners here. She was my easy, like, top 3 strongest women of the year.
Why take her off the list? I mean, it doesn't really matter whether she left.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the year's over. At the end of the day, but it's just crazy to think you're looking at someone who's literally one of the top names that come to mind in that scenario.
Yeah.
And she's released. You're like, what? I mean, it's kind of like letting Seth Rollins go out of nowhere. You're like, no, this is like this is like a major player for a long time. What are you doing? I also think that, like you said, I don't think I want to see her in AEW, but at the same time, with Saraya being back, with potentially the rumors being whatever they are, if Sasha Mercedes were to pop up over in AEW, you could have a lot different.
Athena would be a great
Athena.
Like Athena. Yeah.
Although Athena is Ring of Honor champion, I think we're going to see a lot less of her on Dynamite. Not that we've seen much of her on Dynamite. I think that he's really going to start separating his Ring of Honor with his AEW. So I think for at least the time being, until she drops the title, I don't think we're going to see as much Athena. But in that same regard, yeah, Athena and Mandy, like, I think that
they got history, and they like, and as an aside,
Saraya and Mandy have history. They came up together. Well, not together.
Oh yeah,
but Mandy.
Yeah, Mandy was. She was briefly in NXT, didn't she? And she had a couple of good like bangers with Saraya.
Mandy's debut on the main roster was with Sonya and Paige as Absolution.
Mm-hmm.
So there's already something there too. Like, it seems like a miss, but at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see her pop up anywhere wrestling for at least a little while, and if she doesn't give a little bit of acting a shot, because she's really coming to her own.
Yeah. I mean, and that's purely a possibility. And this is one of those individuals that you can see the talent that she has, and she could apply it anywhere,
Yeah.
and nobody would bat an eye.
She's one of the. So they talk about the airport test.
Mm-hmm.
She's somebody I actually ran into an airport and passed the airport test because I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh shit, that's Mandy Rose. You know what I mean? Like Baron Corbin too. Baron Corbin, because I ended up on a flight with a bunch of talent once on accident.
Right.
I was flying from I was working in Tampa and I live in Tucson, but I knew that there was going to be a show in Phoenix. So I had worked a deal with my girlfriend where she would meet me in Phoenix. And so I flew from Tampa to Phoenix so we could go to Smackdown and stay there for the night and then go back to Tucson. I ended up on the same flight that everyone from Tampa was flying to go do Smackdown in Phoenix. And so like there's Big E, Mandy, Sonya, Corbin, and yeah, almost all of them. When you walk by them in the airport,
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, shit, you know, the Good Brothers. Actually, I saw them on a different flight, but like, there's a lot of star power to just Mandy's presence alone. So I think that she'll be just fine wherever she goes.
Oh yeah,
she decides to do.
But I'm with you. It's such a shock. Like, didn't they just bring back that one dude who had all sorts of allegations against them? They held on to Velveteen Dream.
For a
You know,
long
there's others who've done. Yeah, they're so much worse, and that's their mistake. It really is.
Yeah, that's a bummer. But you know,
So
cheers to
I'm going to propose
Mandy
a
in the
question
future.
to you. I got a question for you.
What's up?
Are you familiar with Asuka's work in New Japan?
I've seen some of it, not like a ton. I'm familiar with the Kana character, what that looked like, and obviously she's been teasing that a lot online lately.
That's what I was going to ask. You know, if you're familiar with the Kana, because I think fans are going to love this. Like, because of just the way the character is in a similar vein of where Bliss went, but it's so dramatically different with its Japanese styling. I think it's going to be huge.
I think what it's also dramatically different than is any other iteration we've seen of Asuka.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like to potentially get a dark side of Asuka could be really cool because we've seen villain Asuka and we've seen good guy Asuka, but we've really just seen loud Asuka,
Yeah.
whether she's cheating or not. You know what I mean? So this
And
could be a much more evil versus villain, you know?
And that's going to be so good. Like, I'm here for it. And that seems to be the direction that WWE is turning, and I think it's a great choice. Is they're taking some of their star faces and they're sort of balancing out the roster so you don't end up with the face versus face for the title because we have nobody else. And they're stepping back to what some of these talent know, and that's leaving the product in a way where things feel fresh to a wider audience for those who don't watch, you know, New Japan or anything else like that. And I think it's going to go such a way. And you even have the marks that are familiar with the older work that are going, oh shit, I know what's coming. This is going to be great.
Yeah, and I think Asuka's character too is, I wouldn't say it's been static, but it hasn't really changed much. Even when they changed the face paint and added the mist, it wasn't much of a change. And then even when she was part of the Kabuki Warriors, it was just a slight variation. So this feels like it could be a more dramatic variation, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, the Kabuki Warriors is another damn shame where they had the opportunity for something magic. They knew they had lightning in a bottle, and they just went, "No, we're good."
Yeah,
Why?
kind of a weird one. Although I do like that in kayfabe storyline, Bailey murdered Kairi Sane.
Yeah. I've seen enough horror movies to know you never trust a chick that's a little too chipper for her own good.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Well, it's the same as the Good Brothers
harken
being back. They were kayfabe murdered by the Undertaker, and I loved it so much when they I mean, I didn't love that they were released, but I loved that after they were released, you could look at it from a kayfabe standpoint and go, oh shit, the Good Brothers were murdered by the Undertaker, and that was it. We never saw them again. So when they pop back up this time, I was like, look, it's cool to have them back, but there's something real cool to be the guy that got murdered by the Undertaker.
It's true, and you've hit a note, like you're a Toxic Attraction guy, P1, very much my thing, and seeing the OC back, and on top of that, having the announce team acknowledging their prior accolades is not just, well, they went over to Japan, there's just the club. They went, no, the Bullet Club. And they called out a lot of this stuff and to mark that history, like the whole program between Finn Balor, Prince Devitt versus AJ Styles is quite literally, a callback to Japan just by existence.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and I love having the Good Brothers back because I just want to be able to go nerds and it be relevant again.
Yeah. It's one of producer lady's favorite comments to yell at me when I'm doing stuff. Nerd.
Which, shout out to the producer lady. Much love.
Yeah, she's not able to be on right now. She's working from home. So, but yes. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit of SmackDown, and then we'll go back to Raw. Because I don't think I have any other news. Was there any other news that came up?
Yeah, there was some speculation that Vince McMahon wanted to return. It's not going to happen. Like, don't fool yourselves.
I love the people who are like outright defending it, and the other people who are outright like trying to. It's kind of regardless of your thought process, it's totally out of our hands. Secondly, I don't think anybody's anxious to have McMahon back. I think everyone's happy with where we're at. So it's fine that he's not there. No, I don't want him back. But there's a part of me that's very petty that likes watching people have meltdowns publicly that would get such a kick out of seeing him come back just to watch the amount of people freak out. That would be funny to me. Not that I want him back. But
I'd see we would see so many Brock Lesnar style FU I quit over this because it is my understanding from the people that I know that nobody wants him back. The locker room is a breath of fresh air. They had, like, your locker room leaders were less needing to be a leader and more the, look, it's not you.
Yeah.
And the product, I mean, my God, you've got SmackDown plot working into Raw plot. You got Raw plot working into SmackDown, and you have NXT thrown occasionally in the middle. And it respects the fans. We notice this storyline crap. We get mad when none of this shit makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we definitely do. Definitely here. But here's what I think that you do though. Oh, this is what you do with Vince. Vince wants to come back. Clearly, he's not looking to book. He wants to be an in-ring competitor. So we bring him back for in-ring. This is how you fix the Roman Reigns problem. The last two in Royal Rumble, Vince and Shane McMahon. They do the classic Bret Hart, Lex Luger, both over the top at the same time. Now you have Roman Reigns against Shane McMahon and Vince McMahon on night 1 and 2. Loses both titles. The Roman Reigns reign is over. We're now into the McMahon era of long championship reigns. Long may he reign. Right? That's how you fix it. You book the McMahons to take the mantle back.
And speaking of that, because we're talking SmackDown, as much as I would love to see Vince McMahon tear his quads again and have to sit against some ropes, I think if they brought him back in ring, they would have to do some like AWA type bullshit where he, I'm the chairman of the board, blah blah blah, and that would be great. I think he could serve that role, but he should have zero creativity because, the product is, as we both have agreed, it's so much better right now. The ratings have been like all-time high.
Yeah.
But
he
should go away.
But if Vince is the Universal Champion and Shane becomes the World Champion.
Because Roman Reigns has what I call uh, the Brock Lesnar problem.
Hmm.
Is they built him up for so long as being so strong, so undefeatable, having so many different ways to retain that, once he's ran through the roster, what's left?
That's what I'm saying. Vince and Shane are left. He
But,
hasn't beat the McMahons, and he can't because they're so good. Shane McMahon's the best in
but
the world.
yeah,
Best
but
in
that's,
the world.
look, that's Irish whiskey versus Tennessee whiskey. It might sound good on paper, but fans would walk the fuck out at that point. I think the moment that those titles ended up in the McMahon's
The
hands.
McMahons are baby faces. Everyone knows it.
Yeah, if you're talking baby face of the face they make before they poo in the diaper.
Oh, yeah,
I love that horn so much.
Kiro's in the chat. Cheers to Kiro. Thanks for coming through, buddy.
Yeah,
And I'm just winding.
Kuro Neko Karama. Okay, I see you.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
I am looking forward to the idea of Roman Reigns losing his title. I really do think, heart of hearts, okay, that it's gonna be the Wyatts. It's gonna be that significant change. Roman Reigns is gonna get some time off, which he needs, because he's been carrying the company on his back for his entire reign.
No.
He needs a break. Maybe they need a title separation, but it really should be. I think, honestly, as much as I would love, to see Sheamus with a world title, because I gotta support my boy. Yeah, Shamo and I are from similar areas.
I
So
shamey. Doom doom boom butter doom doom.
I would totally drink with that man.
Mhm.
I think it should be Wyatt, and they listen to fans' reaction. They know it feels stale, so they've pushed a few of the things along, and you're seeing that it's less. They heard the fans say, "Okay, this is boilerplate too long."
Yeah.
So they pushed it up. Like,
I don't think it's actually been too long, personally. I know a lot of people are saying that, and of course, my fantasy booking to put the McMahons as the world champions is meant to wind you up a little bit. I actually don't think it's been too long. I think that I don't think it's a problem to have your top guy be so high on top that it seems unattainable to beat him. I think that's a really good thing for the titles. I think that means that whoever takes the title off of them becomes a made man in a lot of ways. It just depends on what you do after the fact, right? Like when it's the Hogan thing, you know what I mean? Like Hogan losing it to Yoko made Yoko, but it was the mess up with the Bret Hart and Yoko and Hogan coming back. That's what fumbled it, not the idea that Yoko took it off Hogan. It made Yoko an unbeatable force that a Bret should have been able to take out. You know what I mean? Like, but the Hogan thing complicated that, obviously.
no, I love the fact that you brought up something I actually watched. Uh, sorry, I'm an old hat when it comes to wrestling. Uh, so I get where you're going with that. But when Roman Reigns eventually got the title, right? Because the landscape has changed in what fans want.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're catering to. When John Cena said, love him or hate him, that, you don't hold the keys to your career, they do. And that's true. So, like, he went through 4 matches, like 5 pay-per-views, of pulling this off, and well, he got the win finally in a gimmick match. I know a lot of fans were sour on him when he was using corny ass fucking lines. It took Paul Heyman to drag his ass out of the gutter. Like, Paul Heyman's the guy you bring into a stable to unfuck an entire situation. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm hard pressed to think that the fans just weren't fighting back and wrong. You know what I mean? I don't think when you go back and watch Roman, he wasn't doing a bad job. And I also think that Roman was leaning into what the fans were doing. Like the whole "this is my yard now." It's an all-time reaction, man.
Yeah.
That was like a
When he,
10-minute boo, and he didn't do it to get cheers. He did it to
oh no.
get booed. You know what I mean? Like Hunter had said in an interview at one point, because someone said, what are you going to do about this Roman Reigns problem? You're pushing him as their top babyface, and the fans seem to be rejecting him. And he goes, do you think we can't hear the fans? He's the number one heel in our company. Like, no one gets louder boos than him. They knew what they were doing, and they're like, oh, how do we make him a bigger heel? Keep pushing him as a babyface. The fans fight back. So it's like, they're not dumb, and the IWC constantly thinking they're smarter than everyone back there. It's funny to me, because Triple H is like, oh, they're Triple H and Vince. Oh, they're booing him when we push him as a good guy. Keep him as a good guy, and then put guys like Braun Strowman against him, so that way we can make Braun Strowman a good guy, because they're going to cheer everything he does now. Yep. Strowman throws an ambulance with a fucking paralyzed Roman in there, and the crowd cheers. Woo!
That
they knew. They weren't,
and that's something I've said it, with the various Twitter accounts, because I like reading the dirt sheets for a laugh. The worst thing an audience can do is be completely indifferent to an individual. Why was Cena a face for so long? It wasn't because everybody loved his ass. It was because he got a strong, polarizing reaction. Love him or hate him, you watched him, whether you wanted to see him punch in the face or you wanted to hug him.
Yep. Let's see. Some other people I want to punch in the face. Drew McIntyre was not medically cleared. I want to know, just from your a quick standpoint, what do you think about the Drew McIntyre character?
I like what it has become. I saw the flaws in where he started.
Okay.
Individually speaking, he's a good dude. I think he could step into the Brawling Brute stable as a good fourth. I think they could be the Irish Four Horsemen. He mingles well with that. But they need to stop.
In those four is Irish.
Yes, I am aware of that. Look, the fact that they're even wrestling on a card with somebody as many accolades, which for those in your audience that don't know, Sheamus has been around for years. He is a well-decorated European wrestler, much as Butch, which I fucking hate that. Oh my god.
We like Butch here.
Yeah, I love Butch. I don't like the name change. This is the same motherfucker, and I pardon my language, but this is a moment that solidified him for me for the WWE audience. He walked up to William Regal and basically gave him the middle finger his first time in.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like, iconic moment nobody addresses.
Which also, you could name them the Irish Four Horsemen, because AEW called that whole faction over there the Blackpool Combat Club, and only one of them had ever been to Blackpool. So
it's true.
You can name whatever you want. Well, I was just curious, because I feel like the Drew McIntyre character is a massive disconnect from what he says versus who he is. He seems like a really good dude in real life, but character-wise, he's a total asshole who smiles and kisses babies and says, "Cheer me." But then he says asshole things, attacks people with a giant sword. He'll happily cheat. He'll sucker punch and blindside. He'll destroy your motorcycle because of no reason at all. He's just a big asshole that I'm supposed to cheer. So I am constantly at odds with who he says he is versus who we watch him be, and how I'm meant to react to that. I'm like, I feel like that I'm not being taught to cheer him when he's being mean all the time. Like, this isn't Stone Cold fighting against the Authority. This is literally watching Drew bully people. But Drew wasn't on the show today, so I'll let you finish that, and then we'll go on.
I mean, to a degree, it's related, and that's very much the essence of McMahon booking.
Yeah,
that would have worked in the 80s. That doesn't cut it now in 2022.
Yeah.
It's like the Brutes got, because they were in a match undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship match with the Usos. Uh, those guys hadn't seen anywhere near of a mid card, let alone a tag team title match in the better part of 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, and now they're being utilized, and it looked genuine when they had that one match where it was the Brawling Brutes versus the table, whatever the hell they're calling them now. That was a banger of a match. It was so good, and they made these guys, both sides, look like $1 million.
Yeah. Dude, I thought the match itself, Usos versus Sheamus and Butch, I thought was awesome.
Oh yeah,
These are like,
and that's experience and talent.
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that, the Usos and Sheamus alone have been in wrestling. I think if you combined all their time, roughly at 200 years. I mean, goddamn, pardon my language. I'm really passionate about those guys. You can tell.
Sheamus or the Usos?
All of it. I think the Usos are the modern day Dudley boys in a lot of respect.
Yeah, they're the ones.
Yeah, they are the ones, and everybody else is the twos or something like that.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
We the ones, they the poops. I'm into it.
which I'm telling you, it's not going to be Zayn that's going to betray the bloodline. I'm telling you, it's Jimmy Uso. Mark my words.
I mean, Jimmy's the most laid back of everyone in the story. Because I know a lot of people have been saying Solo, and I could see it.
Yeah, but he's following orders. If we take the plot line wise, and this is, I love horror movies, so the cheeriest chick is often the murderer. You have Jey Uso, who's just an angsty bitch. You have Solo, who's the silent badass. But Solo was sent by Alpha and Sika to make sure that the bloodline stayed on top. Because as the song goes, there's more than one wrestling family. And that entire bloodline out of Samoa, those guys have been champion upon champion for 50 fucking years. So they are a legacy family. They are a third, fourth, fifth generation. I don't think it's going to be Solo. I think that's a misdirection. And we're going to see, the most Usi is going to be like, yeah, I've been playing you the whole fucking time. And Sammy's going to be the guy that's going to go, no, I'm staying. And it's going to be a whole thing. I think it's a longer program.
I could also see. I mean, I guess we'd have to see how it would go. I could see Roman telling Jimmy to take out Sammy and him doing it.
Yeah.
But then you've got, I mean, I guess, yeah, because then you could have Roman say, you know what, I've been messing with you this whole time. And then you can get Sammy being all upset about it. And then you can get to Sammy and Roman at Elimination Chamber, which is in Montreal.
Yeah. And Sammy can get the hometown pop, which, and this is the credit to Sammy. That guy took a bit part and a side role and has turned it into, even AEW fans were chanting, "You're not Usi."
Yeah.
Like he made Solo break character.
So good.
That's talent. You can't
Solo,
waste that
every
talent.
backstage where he puts the towel over his head, I'd put headphones in just so I don't have to hear Sammy and accidentally crack.
Yeah. And that there is one part that bothers me about Solo is that he is basically Taz 2.0. That bothers me.
Well, he's been thumbing guys now. He thumbs them.
If you look at some of the old Impact for Samoa Joe, he used to use that same thing as a finisher.
Mm-hmm.
The Samoan Spike.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, he's reminiscent of Samoa Joe. He's also reminiscent of he's almost what you would think Jacob Fatu would have been if he'd come over.
Yeah. Okay.
But
we're speaking language.
So you said What's up?
But as far as that match is concerned, it was nice to see the Bloodline win clean. It's definitely a contrast where Roman Reigns needs that help to retain, but the Usos are still badass, and I think that lends to the dynamic
Hmm.
of the stable, which you just don't see anymore. Like this is something interesting. It's like watching Ole and Arn Anderson being tag team badasses, but the Four Horsemen needed a little help to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What do you think of the LA Knight and Bray Wyatt stuff going on right now?
I this is gonna be a deep dive.
No.
Okay, I see it like this. If you look at his past, because you know that Bray as an individual, when he talks, the his various characters, everything runs together.
Hmm.
you know, Much in the same way as the Firefly Funhouse, for the most part, was representation of all the characters he had been.
Yeah.
So you have LA Knight, which, if you look at everything that went with Braun Strowman and all that, they all went through a trial by fire. Are you good enough to be with me?
Mm.
And LA Knight, very much capable. Like,
He's very good.
dude's yeah, so good. This is wearing him down. You look at Alexa Bliss, it's a couple of blurbs and she's ready to do a Sister Abigail. But LA Knight, if you can't beat him, join him mentality. He's got all the talent in the world. He can be, any one of those characters. I think it's going to be him joining rather than him as a fight, and it's going to be an interesting program.
We've speculated that as well, that he may be joining with Bray. The thing is I do think both those characters are so strong alone. I don't think they need to be in a faction. I don't think Bray needs to revisit another family-esque thing, but
Well,
damn, they
and
work
that's
so
kind of
well
the trick.
together.
Like the trick is that this is not the Wyatt family. This is people becoming parts of his delusion. And
Hmm.
that's what makes it different. Like you could see Alexa Bliss, there's your Abby the Witch.
Yeah.
You can see LA Knight being Mercy the Buzzard or something to that effect. Well, with the way he talks, Ramblin'
Probably
Rabbit.
Rambling. Yeah. See, he's
Yeah,
rambling.
so you got these personality key traits that can be exemplified without being stale.
No, I don't
And
think
that's
that, because people have talked about it in the sense of like
mm,
actually casting these people in those positions. I don't think we would do that. I don't
yeah.
think we would see LA Knight rebranded as Rambling Rabbit, but I could see him being notably rambly. I also thought
Well,
between this program, we've seen just how damn good LA Knight is as a talker. Like Bray may
mhm.
be the best actor and character actor that WWE may have, but I think LA Knight might be the best wrestling promo they have. Like those were two
Well,
distinctively different types of voices we were hearing going back and forth.
hot take: the best character actor is Alexa Bliss, bar none. Like Bray is good, damn good, top level. Alexa Bliss, that's the cream of the crop
We've
because
said for a
she
long time
went.
that we only have Alexa on borrow from Hollywood until they figure it out.
She's already in a movie. She's already done acting.
She's done a thing until Hollywood figures out just what high level she is. Like it's up to her, I would think. But when she's ready to just go Hollywood, they're gonna scoop her right up, and like
Oh yeah,
we're just biding our time with her. That's what we've been saying for a
Eh,
while.
we're just going to enjoy it as long as we have her because with that. But more to the point with your LA Knight, you don't even have to brand him as Ramblin' Rabbit. You can go harkening back because this is how Bray's mind works. You know, he comes out with a Ramblin' Rabbit mask, some
Mm.
horrifying gimmick, and he doesn't necessarily. They're like, "There's LA Knight. He's blah blah blah." It's the same shit that they did because he. They're going to put something Brody Lee. We know that's going to happen, and that's a good way to do it. I really think that's a good way to do it, where he's still LA Knight, but now he's clearly under the control of a mastermind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he could take his promo skills and go from this self-centered, maniacal, egotistical piece of shit for all intents and purposes, and he can become this narcissistic villain that, really has no regard for anybody else but himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I love the program. It's nice to see with this particular segment. LA Knight made sure that the people who weren't, looking at tags and, subtle hints like an ARG, he pointed it out for everybody and showed the punishment he took for figuring it out. Which the end of that segment was him walking into a room, lights go out, and it's over. You have no idea what's happened to him.
Yeah. And then we did see the eyes, the blue eyes behind the mask, which was interesting because it's obviously the opposite of the Fiend's red eyes.
Yep. And during the brief flashes that were going on with the promo he cut in the ring, there was a woman's voice, which is very similar to Alexa Bliss, which ties into Monday. Again, we have conjunctive story. Holy crap.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. Let's see. Hit Row, Legato, and the Vikings. I'm okay with the program, but it's just kind of feels like we're just going through motions.
We are, but we're not. We're seeing the return of Sarah Rowe, who is the Viking priestess. They went very hard into that gimmick, which is what they should have done from the beginning.
Yeah, for a while.
Yeah, and the way that they came back, the Viking Raiders didn't come back going, blah, 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 we got shields. They went, no, we're just going to beat your ass and we're going to take over your island. And that's true to form. And I love it. I'm here for it. I want to see more of this. I want to see more backstage. Hit Row I've never been too hot for, but that's just me. But to see the Viking Raiders come back and looking like a strong, dominant tag team, that speaks to me.
Right. But my problem is that Hit Row, Legato, and the Viking Raiders are all still without footing. So none of them have been shown as dominant. So by any one of them taking power over, they're all so new. We don't know what any of them have. Legato lost like their second match. Hit Row lost like their third match. The Viking Raiders have been kind of beating up these two teams that also got the better of them this week. Like, it's just none of them have gotten their footing to say that we're strong. So it feels a little bit like bumper cars. It doesn't feel like a big fight because I don't know who's strong. No one's been established as strong.
And is that a means of putting a slow build on this to where we're going to have a triple threat or, a four-way with the Usos, which is going to lead to, one of these guys pulling out something really extra? And that could work because they got to separate those titles.
They do, but I feel like the problem with it is they hot-shotted the whole angle, so you just know that one of these teams is going to come out on top and go up against the Usos and be a strong team against the Usos. But at no point is it like, oh shit, Hit Row got one over on Legato. Legato's unstoppable. You're like, no, Legato's only been there for 2 matches. Legato beats Hit Row, and you go, oh shit, they beat Hit Row. And like, yeah, but they've lost the last 2. Viking Raiders come in and demolish all of them, and you're like, oh cool, but those 2 teams aren't very good. They lose a lot. You know what I mean? That like, they haven't established any of them to be strong. They're not even putting them through general jobber matches just so you can say, damn, these teams are all such high level. We're still figuring out who these teams even are. Legato's only cut like 3 promos. So it's like, to me, they hot-shotted this thing to get somewhere, and I just don't know why they're rushing it.
Well, NXT is, and some people call it developmental brand, and to a degree it is. But they're on TV once a week, just like the Raw and the SmackDown people. So, especially with the internet community being what it is, I really do think that, WWE is taking that into account this time. Like, rather than, Legado del Fantasma with them, they came up and got a huge pop. Now, it wasn't because they were new, it was because people knew who they were. Hit Row showed up, big pop. It's not because they'd ever really done anything on the main rosters, because they're NXT, they were legit. And they'd only had like 2 matches prior, and they weren't really spectacular. So I think they're taking that into account. NXT is treating it as a legit brand, and that's kind of why they're doing this. Because if you take that into consideration, this is the Viking Raiders, who had almost no time in NXT, and then you have these two veteran NXT Tag Team Champions in their own right, who had their own feud for what, a year. That maybe this is their way of it, finally acknowledging that NXT exists and it's not just for the Royal Rumble. And that makes sense to me why they would do this.
That feels more like a disconnect than it feels like an incentive. Because that's one of the issues that you have with like AEW is they book all their stuff like everybody's watching everything that they put on. But then you just get these disconnects on TV. This feels like you have shows with NXT that largely won't necessarily get more than 400,000 people to watch it. Now you're putting them in front of 2 million people watching, and you're just saying like, remember all that stuff that happened? And we're all like, no. I mean, I watched it, and even then I still feel there's a disconnect. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel, especially because the presentation's changed. I just feel like that you should take the time to say you're on a bigger platform. Let's introduce the audience to you, because otherwise New Japan gets just as many viewers as NXT. We bring in a Ricochet. We don't just say, hey, remember him from Japan? We say, no, this is our Ricochet. Let me teach you who he is. You know what I mean? Like, they just need to give them some footing and take their time with it. I do feel like Triple H's biggest issue as a booker is he books as though everybody's seen everything that he did in NXT, and he books as though everything that happened after NXT to now is the way he would have liked it to have happened, not that it happened a different way. And we'll get to that on Raw when we talk more about like Gargano and such. He's booking Gargano like we haven't not seen him for a long time,
No, but Dexter Lumis is a whole another subject I love. But you're right. You have a very valid point. See, I'm not drunk because I acknowledge his point. You have a very valid point. I mean, I'm one of those people that have followed a lot of these careers since before they, made it to major TV. And you're right. The
And I love all
casual
three of
fan
those
is
teams.
not going to know. Oh yeah,
I love all three of them, and I'm watching it going, I should be more excited about this. Why do I not feel more excited about this? And I think it's just that disconnect of we're assuming that everything in NXT matters. You're having to retrain two audiences at the same time. You're trying to retrain the NXT audience that NXT matters, because we've been taught for years that you get a rebranding when you go up, and you're trying to teach people who don't watch NXT that NXT matters, because they don't watch it anyways, because they're used to having things rebranded when they get to it anyways. That what you end up doing is having a disconnect from both halves of your audience.
But would it be that we're in the middle of the retraining, that, giving respect that NXT exists?
Sure. It's a lot of growing pains though, and I feel like these three teams are taking the brunt of that on SmackDown at least.
Well, look at the SmackDown tag team roster. 90% of them got released pretty much in the first set during COVID. And you're having to refill these gaps. You're having to, bring a lot of these people back. And, I think this is growing pains. I think we got another year before, the ratings are going to even out. Things are going to even out. Like, why do you put the New Day on NXT? Very simple answer. More eyes on NXT. Take your smaller brand and elevate it.
Well, I think also you take people like the New Day or Balor or even Ricochet or Natty. The reason you pop them in NXT is to provide a familiar face, a nice treat for the people in NXT. People who watch it get a little something extra. People who watch the main roster have a reason to watch NXT. But also, instead of just calling someone up and then putting them out there with somebody and saying how'd they do, go down to their area and say, what do they need to work on? You know what I mean? Like, what's it gonna take to get them ready? You know, so it makes me think that they're close to sending up a few of these people.
Yeah, and then bringing in, like, they've started bringing in more to fill in the female roster. These are ladies that I'm familiar with,
Mhm.
like the Elba Fire gimmick and where all that's
Yeah,
going. Believe me, that's an old story. Some of y'all are probably not familiar with. You
Alba
know,
Fire's dope.
Valkyrie is new. I think she needs to adjust to the American audience. She's not ready for that yet. She's very green to that.
She felt new in
But
NXT UK too, because we watched NXT UK a lot and we liked her character, but in ring she felt like she needed some work, some time.
yeah, her expressions are a little over the top, but that's very much an Irish, Scottish, London, England sort of way of being
Mm,
expressive. That the American audience, we want subtlety. We want to smell our wine before we sip it.
yeah,
Uh, but I think, at the end of the day, if we ignored the growing pains, is that you're gonna see, more of a culmination. I honestly think Hit Row is gonna make it a little bit more because they didn't need Zelina Vega to elevate their status. Like
they
that
absolutely did.
feels more.
I think they
You know,
absolutely
you
did need Zelina, because I think it was what they did something smart here with
Mhm.
adding Zelina, and then we're gonna move on to the New Day. Um,
Cool.
Adding Zelina to Legato did not
Hmm.
undermine Santos's ability to talk. It highlighted his ability to talk by having her say one or two words and then handing him the mic, because everyone sees her and goes, "Oh, we know why she's here." And then when she goes, "Nope, I'm here for the total package," and hands the mic over, everyone goes, "Wait a
Hmm.
second." So by simply having her say two lines and hand the mic over, elevated Santos's talking ability, as in, I'm not here for why you think I'm here. I'm here to dominate with the rest of the team, you know?
Yeah, and she took that casual audience and the fact that she was back in WWE, she's working with this faction. She doesn't need to say a word. She's got her own pedigree, which
Mhm.
adds to the legitimacy.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, Smart move on their part.
Yep. And this is who she wants to surround herself with, which is also smart, because she's never been a part of like any kind of job or crew, you know?
Hmm.
Uh, the New Day and Ricochet in the contract signing with Imperium. Yeah, I liked all that. I liked the contract signing. I
Oh
liked the
yeah,
match. I got a kick out of it. I will say that, the jokes were sophomorish, but I think it works better with New Day than most, because I'm not going to pretend that I'm not talking on both sides of my mouth a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the Acclaimed. I think that they are loud for no reason. And I think that their Scissor Me Daddy stuff just feels sophomorish and doesn't connect with me at all. I didn't think that everything that they said here was clever, but I got
no.
more of a chuckle out of this than I get out of a lot of the sophomoric humor, because I think that they are a little more innuendo than they are just stating it. You know what I mean?
Well,
I don't
and
know.
I agree with you. The Acclaim, the only thing that makes them relevant is not who's managing them, not who's backing them. It's that when they show up to the ring, they pull an, Enzo type gimmick where they're,
Yeah.
they're coming up the ramp, they're making up reps. That's great. Hip hop culture. Paul Heyman did it like 20 odd years ago. Uh,
Yeah.
but this, like, Ricochet involved with the team, I think, is their way of kind of subtly pushing him back into things. And
Hmm.
Imperium, they booked Imperium so strong in the UK that you need something more. They can't bring Big E back. He's not prepared for that. So you need somebody a step more. And Ricochet's money.
Yeah.
Like, home dude carried fucking Lucha Underground on his back.
Yep.
Like, he was the guy.
Yep. He was why I watched
And
it.
yeah, because that dude just does things that human beings should not be allowed to
Yeah. He's
do.
so good.
Yeah,
Uh,
I big fan of Ricochet.
yeah. And I'm excited for another Gunther Ricochet match. Let's do it. I got a
Oh
question for
yeah.
you, because I know that you
Hmm.
are a big fan of women's wrestling and a big
Yes,
fan of
sir.
NXT.
Yes,
So I assume
sir.
that you would need to be a big fan of Tegan Knox.
Tegan Knox, she's the moment they put her on the main roster, you didn't have to question she's a star.
Correct.
End of list. Like
What
this
I
is
think
the
here's the
chick.
thing.
Mhm.
I'm big on Tegan Knox. I'm big on Tegan and Dakota. I'm big on everything she did in
Mhm.
NXT. As soon as she showed up and she was with
Okay.
Shotzi, I was like, that's a weird choice. But you know what? It'll probably work, and it worked. They became number one contenders
Mhm.
right away. Tegan Knox disappears. Obviously, for we know
Yes.
the non-kayfabe reasons. But if we're talking a little bit, because how you watch a show is how they're giving it to you, right? We can't fill in the gaps ourselves necessarily. So Tegan Knox teams with Shotzi, number one contenders. And next thing you know, if you're watching TV, Tegan's just gone. Now you have
Yep.
Shotzi Blackheart in a number of angles where she keeps being outnumbered and overpowered and needs a friend. And who's there but an injured Raquel, who is not there but a Tegan Knox, who does show up later on to save someone else. Now she's teaming with
Mhm.
Liv. Liv and Tegan cut this promo on Shayna and Ronda saying, you guys have beat everyone but us. Or to even, and it's like, who the fuck are you? Like, you haven't done anything here. You guys have never teamed together. Now Liv and Tegan beat Ronda and Shayna. And I'm a big Tegan Knox fan and feel utterly confused by this version of Tegan I'm getting right now. What connects her with Liv Morgan? Why does she want nothing to do with Shotzi? What's going on with Ronda and Shayna, who trained in MMA together for years that we know of, even in kayfabe, and they can't work together as a unit, but Crazy Liv and Rookie Tegan, so far as we know on TV, is outdoing them. Like, it's really, this is so weird to me. I love actually all four of these women, Liv, Tegan, Ronda, and Shayna, I think are incredible. And if you told me on paper we're going to get matches with them together, I'm excited about it. But as I watch it, I go, what the fuck is happening?
Well, and I agree with you 100%. Everything you said has made sense to me. But I'm going to add a caveat, an asterisk, as they say.
Yeah,
Uh,
dude.
it seems like they're trying to put Tegan in this concept of she's willing to defend, you know, NXT talent. She used to have a big beef with Shayna. That was like one of her major programs, if I
Yeah.
recall. And that seems where she interjects herself. It's not who she's helping, it's what she's after, and that's a piece of Shayna. The way they got the win, I think, took the push because it was Raquel who came out, was blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. Refs hold them back. That was a distraction. Ronda's fault.
Which
And
also
part of that,
undermines their victory and makes it even more stupid that they're getting a title shot after that.
yeah, it's bullshit. It's nice that well, they made it on paper. No, that takes the piss out of the victory in and of itself. And
Yeah.
Liv's character change, turning her more towards an old school Nikki Cross, great idea,
I love it.
well executed, but like, why do all this to get to the end road when you could have just walked to the end road and it would have made sense?
Yeah, or why is this fiercely independent and violent Liv, who's willing to take on damage control on her own,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly need a
And
tag
Ronda,
partner? And now she wants to be in a
yeah,
tag.
like,
It just, I'm so baffled. This is another one of those Triple H holes in booking where he wants to book as though NXT is the end all be all of everything that's ever happened, and everything that happened after NXT to now happened the way he wished it had. It feels like he's booking for the last year that Tegan was gone in a fantasy realm
mm-hmm.
that she's been here the whole time and has built all this story with everybody. And they
But
clearly
hasn't,
defined the
yeah.
last thing, and none of that happened. Like, I would have liked at least something where Tegan and Shotzi are acknowledging each other. You know what I mean? Like, the
Yeah.
last time we saw her, you were a number one contender with Shotzi, and then you guys never went for it. Shotzi didn't even cut a promo saying, you know what, I've cut the dead weight. And then you go, oh shit, she dumped Tegan. What's up? And then Tegan comes back with a new hair and goes, you know what, after Shotzi cut me loose, it really hit me hard, and I took all this time to myself. None of that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm watching this,
Yeah.
like, did Triple H see something I didn't?
I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
he must have because I agree there's a disjointment, but I would love to have seen like Liv do a couple more points where, you know, they're having a title defense, Ronda and Shayna, and Liv just rolls out and disqualifies the team, creates a little turmoil. You know, much of the same way, you know, with what she's being based on is having a Nikki Cross style, you know, fuck you, I'm extreme.
Right?
Because
She could have just
I
cost them the match
yeah,
by DQ. Yeah.
like, and the thing is we know that Liv was initially going to be one of those choices for the Wyatt family faction because she started teasing that shit 3 years ago with the pictures on Twitter and whatnot and all that gimmick. And you're right, there's just such a disjointment that it assumes a lot of the fans and maybe it gives them too much credit. You know, it's like to harken back, it's like, you know, watching a McMahon product versus a Crockett product. There was some interchange, but they were never meant to be cohesive universes.
Yeah. I feel like
Maybe
Triple H
that's
has
the
the
thing.
coolest E-Fed that we've never been able to read. Because he's booking like a bunch of shits happen we haven't seen. I want in on Triple H's E-Fed.
Me and you both. Like, I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he's booking better in his head than McMahon has booked in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Could be, but write it down. Christ.
Yeah, man. Give us the fanfic.
Yeah. To wrap up SmackDown before we go over to Raw, they did have the Kurt Angle birthday celebration at the end. Chad Gable, Otis goofing off in the milk. Kurt Angle clearly having a good time. This was a lighthearted, means nothing series of segments that was just kind of fun and meant to put a smile on your face. I think my big takeaway, though, if I had to talk about anything specifically other than a bunch of people having a good time, Gable Steveson was put into here. They had a backstage segment with him and Braun Strowman where Braun was like happy-go-lucky good guy, which was really weird.
Confusing.
But even more weird, Gable Steveson might have been a robot or a stand-up. He was like so void of any content or emotion or personality, and it's not what I expected of him. Even though we've not seen a lot of him, he really felt like really nervous and did not want to say the wrong thing, so I'll just opt on not saying anything at all.
Yeah, and I can see that. And there's, from my understanding, there's been a big change. Like they're being given, don't say this, but have some fun with it. Uh, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think, look, the Alpha Academy is over. Not over as in popular, but over as in done.
Oh, well,
And
they're losers.
It's over with. And, you know, they kind of cemented that back, to me at least.
I think Triple H again books as though we're all in his head. And I think that you're going to see Alpha Academy for a while, and they're going to win some and be a big threat when they're in there because they're Olympic wrestlers. And then they're going to lose 9 in a row to some jokes, and they're going to put 2 people together who've never tagged together to beat the Alpha Academy. And I think they're just going to be that kind of headbangers type. They're like the headbangers now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's upsetting.
It is. It is.
Like, you know, Otis, for whatever you want to call him or give him a name, you know, that whole thing with Mandy, that whole plot was, fans were in it with it. Like, everybody wanted to see it. I wanted to see it. You know, because that was that good guy got the hot chick, you know, it was very meta. And we lived through Otis.
Yeah.
And they just shut it down. And I think this is where, you know, Alpha Academy does need to die. They need to treat Chad Gableson with a lot of respect because the dude is legit. And maybe this is what it takes. Maybe they needed to comedy it so much that the fans are like, why am I watching this? And I could be wrong about that. But I don't know, man. I've never liked the Alpha Academy gimmick at all.
I've never liked it until they added Otis to it, and they did somewhere along the line. Chad and Otis made sense. But everything prior to that, I wasn't a big fan of. I wasn't a big fan of them in NXT. I wasn't a big fan of Chad and Jason together. I wasn't adamantly against them as a team. I thought they were fantastic when the bell rang. But I thought everything about why they were together or what got us there never quite connected to me. And I felt like Chad and Otis did. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are a massive threat, but they lose all the time. And I just don't see how that fleshes out. I mean, it's kind of like Damage Control as we get into Raw. Damage Control, a massive threat who never wins.
Those matches that are important. Well, the tag championships they can keep, and this is, oh god, Damage Control is going to be a whole segment. But let's go to Raw. Like
it opens up with Bayley. Bayley and Alexa Bliss is the match that opens up, but we have a little bit of a Bayley going out there with Damage Control. Becky jumps Damage Control, beats the snot out of Dakota and EO, and now Becky is done for. The big idiot crossing Bayley like that. What do you think is going to happen? Ding dong dummy.
I think they're gearing. Sorry, I apologize. I think they're gearing Becky to be the female Stone Cold Steve Austin, writing off the whole thing, that iconic picture where she's bleeding from her nose. They've been baited Raw, and she looks badass, and that's how she became the man. They're pulling back into that gimmick, away from the weird Lady Gaga shit. But I think we're going to see that sort of Stone Cold aspect on the tag team. And now that Alexa has put one over on Bayley, because this has been her general push, we're going to have Bayley trying to fuck over Alexa, which we also have. We'll get to the ending, but
how cool is it that we have storyline right now in Raw that intertwine Bayley, Becky, Alexa, Bianca, Dakota, and EO, and Candice LeRae? All of their stories are tied together. How cool is that on paper?
My heart beats deeply for this WWE. Like, it brings me back to when the F was still in the name. Oh man, like I love it so much.
Yeah,
like
it's amazing.
It respects me as a fan. It respects you as a fan. It gives me a reason to watch not just SmackDown, but I also watch Raw. And now these surprises are happening in NXT, and I get to watch NXT too. And oh man, I'm so happy as a fan.
I mean, that's not to say that some of this isn't without a little bit of disconnect, and we'll talk about that as we get. But just a real fun, notable thing. Bayley was on Instagram Live today promoting her her charity thing. Go to her Instagram. There's a link there where you can donate. Same thing she did last year. She was asked by what's his name, Jake Johnson, I think his name is, who plays Nick Miller on New Girl. Let me see. I think it's Jake Johnson.
I think so.
Jake Johnson. Yeah. He asked her if there was ever, or if she can recall a match where they got off track and had to kind of like reevaluate what are they doing or forget where they're going, kind of a deal. And she had said that on Monday she had a match. She didn't say against who, but we watched it, so we know it's Alexa Bliss. She said there was a kind of a reverse Hurricane Rana thing where they both landed on their heads. They both got up and went for the same move because they both were rattled. And so they hit their heads again. And then she said it got a little bit clunky, and she basically clotheslined Alexa Bliss to just kind of reset the match, to be like, all right, let's slow down. Let's figure out where we're at and where we got to go. But that there was a moment of confusion here where it all just got super messy and they had to kind of like reset. Which that was kind of a cool little insight. Makes you want to go back and find that spot, But
you can tell, like, and it worked, and that's a credit to Bayley, who's the veteran and all that, because she's been wrestling for a long time.
Yeah,
and that match was beautiful.
Ever since Alexa's return at Stomping Ground, after the Evolution thing. So I want to say 2019.
Yes.
They've worked so well together in ring. I would say everything before Stomping Ground was a mess between the two of them. Stomping Ground and on, Alexa and Bailey work so great together. And couldn't tell you what that shift is necessarily, but there's an identifiable shift you can see.
To do the, real life experience versus the ring, I think that Bailey is Alexa's Bull Nakano.
Mm-hmm.
Like those two don't need language. They don't need to talk. They can just work a match, and no matter how screwed up it gets, they're gonna make it look good, and everybody's gonna be into it.
Yep.
And that's like the way that went. The match was done clean. You could tell there was back and forth. It didn't look like it was ham-fisted. Like there, poetry in motion.
I called
That's
this
my
one
opinion of that match.
During the triple threat last week as we were watching, and I went, "Oh, it was kind of early on in the match too. I went, "Oh, this is going to Alexa."
Yep.
And producer lady's like, asked me some sort of question about it, and I was like, "They're gonna give this one to Alexa. Alexa's gonna turn heel on Bianca, and we're gonna have the transformation we need, and then that resets Bailey and Becky back on course."
Yep.
Nikki's also a wild card right now, and I guess we see what happens with that. But I'm really happy with where this is going and what we saw at the end there. Bianca coming out, the little shudder, the Sister Abigail tease. I'm excited
Which is
for what
not
we get
the
next.
first tease.
No,
it's not the first tease.
No, we've been having like 6 weeks of teases.
Yeah, well, the Sister Abigail tease happened again, but they didn't catch it on camera because your soft cam was off, and some people got it on cell phone. The match prior on Monday, she teased it again.
She did it on Monday. We saw it.
Yeah, not this last Monday, but the Monday before.
Yeah, the Monday before in the triple threat, she did it as well.
Yeah, because I've looked at the WWE stuff because I always like to see the difference.
Yeah.
They didn't show it.
Yes, they did because I saw it.
No, I looked. Yeah, I'm not talking about the one she was going to do on Bianca. I'm talking about the match before that.
For Becky. She put Becky in the Sister Abigail and then snapped out of it.
Yeah, it's not on the WWE. It's on the everybody else's footage. It's not on the WWE.com footage. I think
it might not be on their YouTube, but it was live on USA because when I watched it on Raw, it was there.
I watched it and woke up my producer lady because I was like, "Yes, get her."
Yeah, they've been teasing it for a while. It's going to be good.
And then the way they ended that, it was a clean victory for the most part. You knew what was going on. It kind of separated the damage control. And you're right. She's going to have to go after Becky because, she just fucked over her teammates and she can't keep them if she doesn't do anything to step for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that clears the way for a good, clean match. I think Bianca's going to lose her title to Bliss. But it's going to be one of those things where we're going to see the flip, and that's what's going to change. That's where she's going to get the title.
I doubt it. I think Bianca's going to lose the title at Mania.
She might get it back at Mania, but I think she's going to lose it in the intermediary and then work her way back up. Yeah, like it's going to be the Royal Rumble sort of thing where she's going to be the EST of NXT.
Because my hunch is that as much as I want a one-on-one match, my hunch as of right now is we get triple threat Bailey, Bianca, Becky.
I could see that. I could see that as being a WrestleMania thing too. Just
that's what somehow, I meant. Mania. I feel like that's where we're going. Is a Mania one of that.
Like Bliss loses the title, doesn't matter which one. They're gonna have a triple threat, and there you go.
Yeah,
I could see that.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte comes back, wins the Rumble, and faces Ronda again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a feud they need to pull on hard.
I would hate all of that, but I hear you.
Well,
I mean, she hasn't. Yeah. So I don't need it. I trash Charlotte enough. I don't need to. I'll wait till she's back to trash her more effectively. But
yeah, daddy issues aside, so to speak.
Oh yeah, I don't even care about that stuff. It's just so much of her work is whatever. But so speaking of trash, this Raw at this point on, like we had this opening match, this opening segment I liked, and then I'll be honest with you, I liked Io and Candice. Solo and Elias was a good match, but kind of I don't know what the fuck we're doing. Like what we're doing with Elias.
Yep.
But like there's this massive chunk here of AJ versus Chad Gable, which you would think would have me just captivated because they're both so good. But I'm so not invested in this. Judgment Day, Street Profits, and Akira Tozawa. I have no idea why this is happening.
Yep.
Everything with Miz, Dexter, and Johnny, I cannot stand. Like this was a really tough one for me to get through for the next like hour. I felt like the next hour and a half, I was like, couldn't find a reason to turn the volume up.
Well, and that's, and I'm going to walk it through, why do we care about Bobby Lashley's getting fired? Because we know he's not really fired.
But
Kayfabe is
Bobby and
dead.
Rollins is a good story.
Right.
It's tied
But
in with the US
now,
title, which also Theory and Ziggler. Like there's a lot there.
Theory and Ziggler is a whole nother. Dolph Ziggler, hot take, is one of the best workers in the company.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a reason that dude has kept the job because win or lose, everybody looks good.
Yep. Yeah.
But Lashley, we know where it's going to go. Lashley's going to come out of the crowd. He's going to buy tickets. They're latching on to old gimmicks because they need to end this. I think we're in that stage where, they're pushing to get out the old story, the old creative bullshit, and it's going to creep into newer things. Like you're right. Why do we have the Oscar match? Because we know she's going to turn to Kana. Why do we have the Solo match? Because Solo needs to be a badass and needs more time to get exposed to the audience, and Sammy needs to be seen on screen because he's the most over.
Right. But it also was a lot of those in a row. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where it's all like, why are we doing this? To get this guy a little bit of this. There was a lot in a row that didn't matter. And it was just to do a one little thing. So it just felt like a chore at some point where it goes, we're suffering through this Elias thing because we're trying to solidify Solo as the enforcer.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of Sammy and KO rub on that. This right after, I mean, Io got the win over Candice, which was nice, but also, what the fuck is Candice doing with these matches with Damage Control? You know what I mean? They're already teasing her with they've already got her with Gargano.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot in a row where I didn't care.
Like if I was gonna do the booking of this, just taking same matches, same outcomes, same booking, okay? I would have put Bobby Lashley as that's a starter match right there. You move Alexa, Bianca, and all that gimmick. You put that as your second match. That gives you a hook. Then you move into the Rhea and Asuka could go third or fourth, depending. Well, because the Elias match, so you would put Asuka and Rhea at fourth, so you get that ebb and flow. Because we love Elias for being the wandering troubadour. We don't love Elias at this point because he doesn't have Matt Riddle.
Yeah.
Because Matt Riddle, much like Randy Orton, Orton got back over with the crowd because Matt Riddle did his bro shit.
Yeah.
And you're right. A lot of what Raw was doing is crap. I will disagree with you on the Gargano, Dexter Lumis, Miz thing. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah, go ahead, because I haven't found a single word that any of them said to be even remotely funny or entertaining.
That's because you're looking at words and not the one who's not speaking. That's where I'm at with that. Dexter Lumis, as a whole, is the guy that this all relies upon. Johnny Gargano can be Johnny Wrestling and run his fucking mouth all day. Great mic skills, nobody cares. Miz, great mic skills, great talent, nobody cares. Dexter, in terms of the main audience, is something new. The casual fan isn't understanding of who Dexter Lumis is.
Mhm.
because even in NXT, he was used sporadically. As an example, during his initial point and feud with The Miz, there was a segment where Dexter Lumis shows up at NXT and gives what's her name a hug and a kiss because that's like his whole thing. The only person
Yeah.
who shows any emotion to gets arrested and hauled out of the performance center.
Yeah.
Uh, which is a nice callback. It made people pay attention. Uh, but I think Dexter is the key, and we're coming to the end of that. But I think they're gonna have a hard time putting Dexter into any place that isn't NXT because his gimmick requires a secondary voice,
Yes.
somebody to speak for him. I don't think Johnny Gargano needs to be that guy.
No, I think Johnny
You know?
Gargano's ruined that guy because I think what was fascinating about
Okay.
Dexter and what made him so interesting in the initial run in NXT was he was a
Hmm.
dark and creepy dude who you couldn't put your finger on. You weren't sure what he was doing here other than competing and being violent. You didn't know what he wanted. And then they decided to give his character depth by adding bad comedy around him. And I don't just mean like
Hmm.
bad jokes. I mean bad delivery, people who don't know what's funny, saying things in a childish manner around a serious guy, which makes me know he's a joke. And there's no reason to take him serious or be afraid of him. He's a joke surrounded by other bad jokes. And so I've lost all investment. I loved Dexter when he first showed up, all the way through his Cameron Grimes thing. Everything from the way on made me realize there's no reason to care about any of these people. There was nothing
Well,
there for me.
and I'm going to counter that point. Um, do you remember the segment that was done off screen where it was Bailey and Finn Balor, and they reenacted the scene from
Dirty Dancing?
uh, Dirty Dancing, right?
Yeah, it was mixed tag
Yep.
match on Facebook, which was a comedy show.
Yep. But it's one of those things that, comedy or not, was a huge deal. You
Yeah.
add in that whole thing where Finn was injured and Bailey came to cheer him up after his promo and mimicked his entrance, which broke him because Finn had no idea it was happening.
Mhm.
Uh, and then you had the reverse at the same time. They're trying to capture that magic, and it's just not going to work because there's not the kind of chemistry.
Yes.
Because people who are IWC are like, that was an awesome moment. People who have no idea are like, and they can't put that on the main screen. It's just you can't take that magic and make it something more than it is.
Yeah.
And that's where it is with Johnny Gargano. Dude can talk that mic and finesse it like no problem. This is the wrong plot for him. It was cool in the beginning, but it became stale because it was too much. It was too much Gargano, needed to be more Loomis.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And this whole segment felt desperate as hell. How desperate
Mm-hmm.
are you as a character to literally be handing out merch to get cheers? And then the whole story here is that Johnny Gargano's giving away merch and Miz is taking away merch. There's no
Yep.
bigger definition of cheap. That's VFW cheap heat. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
this is so desperate to please cheer me. And I think Gargano has been a major disappointment on the main roster.
So
He is
far,
not
yes.
getting the reaction that they are expecting him to get. And Johnny's a massive hole in Triple H's booking as though something already happened. He's assuming Gargano got over. He thinks this is Gargano winning the NXT championship, sliding right into here. But there's not. There's a massive disconnect between those two things. Johnny's talking like the crowd's blowing up when he goes out there. They're doing the long crowd shots. They gave him the John Cena cam. And I
Yep.
thought it was a photograph on one of his
Yeah.
entrances because no one moved or budged or made a noise. When they changed the music of Johnny, everyone heard crystal clear the brand new singer on that track because there was no noise to drown it out. He's not getting the reaction they think. And now having him send merch into the audience is begging them to cheer him when he comes out. Please cheer him.
Yeah.
We're literally giving away money and t-shirts. And I was like,
Rebel Heart needed to never change. Like,
yeah, there's
that
no
was,
reason to change that.
yeah, shooting the merch didn't need to happen. You know, he needed to go out, cut a promo, look, this is what I've done, this is where I come from. If they can give the same acknowledgement to the OC coming from the Bullet Club, there is no reason they couldn't give him his accolades, you know, and give him a little more props. I've been a champion in every company I've ever been in. I have worked this mic more than most of the talent in the back. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he could start off heel, go face, piss off the Miz because who likes the Miz? Talented, but his character's been I'm a dickbag for years. Like he could, you know, they could have done this better, but I think part of that is trying to play off what McMahon had initially set in motion because there was this whole uh overlapping point where, you know, Vince's plans had changed over, and while there was some audibles called,
Mm-hmm.
like they were still working up that, and then Paul Levesque had to figure out, okay, how do we take this bullshit he's booked me into a corner with and make it into something different? I think maybe that's we as fans have too much of an expectation in that respect,
Mm-hmm.
but
Could
it
be.
feels to me, yeah. Uh, so ignoring all the other crap because this was one of the lowest rated Raws in years. Uh,
Mm.
we're at Rhea Ripley and all that. No. I'm wrong. Stand by.
Yeah, no, more or less. I mean, the Io Candice match was actually pretty solid for the most part. I don't
Yeah.
think that those two work well together.
No, not
I
at
think
all.
they're way too comfortable together because they wrestle like they're playing around and practicing. They don't wrestle like they're competing. They'll literally tap someone in, like I've seen Candice do it to Io and Io do it to Candice. They tap them on the thigh, just like as a almost like an Iggy. Just give them a little tap, and then they do the flat bump, like they just had their legs swept out from underneath them. Like, no, you didn't actually provide pressure to do that. Like it looks like they're going through the motions, and I'm done watching them in the ring. I'd rather have Candice move on because they're too comfortable. Keep them apart for a bit.
Yeah, they don't have that. Like her match with it was Candice and her. Yeah, like she started in hot. She needed to lose. She's not ready for Bailey. That's a push.
Yeah.
But then Io's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that individually they're absolutely talented.
Yep.
But I agree with you. There's just no point to allow this to continue. You know, they need to work it more seriously. You know,
Yeah.
Candice is an amazing talent. Io is an amazing talent.
Exactly. They're so good that them working poorly together time and time again is doing them both a disservice. Keep them apart. They're too comfortable together. They're not competing together. They're playing together, and it looks that way, and the crowd's dead for it. Put them in the ring with other women because they are so good. They'll get over then, and you can revisit this down the line when they're a little more heated
when
or
they're
something, you know?
a little more comfortable with, because American wrestling versus the way the rest of the world views it is entirely different.
Yep.
Uh, for those in the channel that don't know, like it's general European wrestling is less stop and hold. It's more interest in the entrance. When you talk to Japan, they're more spot moves where they have quick points of action, rest hold, quick points of action, rest hold, more what you'd see on an AEW Dynamite. And things of that nature. It's just different to the way the crowds react. Americans are a little different. We like a little bit of A, B, and C, but we won't commit to A, B, or C.
Yeah. No, I get you. Rhea and Asuka, though, I thought this match was dope.
Yes.
And having Asuka come out without the face paint at all was super notable and subtle at the same time. Maybe it wasn't super subtle, but it felt subtle because it felt like it took a second. We're looking at her face and going, something's different. Like where's everything? Because even when she would do minimal paint, it would just be the one line. She had nothing, which I thought was very interesting.
And it plays to and we discussed that a little earlier at the beginning of the show. Kana as a character, I still say American audiences are going to absolutely love Kana because she's such a contrast, and I'm with Marsh
Hmm.
very much so. Uh, and this was that catch because, you know, Asuka's got a lot of history, and we're not even talking wrestling. Some people may not realize that one of Asuka's original jobs prior to wrestling was she worked for Sega on their magazine, believe it or not.
That's cool.
Uh, yeah, she's a significant gamer. She has a YouTube channel, which a lot of that stuff talks about her, buying things. She's very much a gamer. Uh, so a lot of that she takes into play. And, going into the Kana respect, 'cause she's teased it, but they've obviously not hit the trigger. This is, I think, is going to be the trigger. This is going to be heel Asuka. I think Rhea, they work really well together. This is that person. And then you've got this outsider that can fuck with the Judgment Day, which is, because they've earned the ire. They deserve somebody as an outside factor, and Kana is pretty much known for that. It doesn't matter who you are, I'll fuck with all of you.
Yeah, I do like that with Asuka and Alexa, even Becky, that they're shifting the women's characters away from too much status quo. Now, I mean, you
Yeah,
can make the argument that Becky's just kind of reverting back to what may have been status quo, but I think that the idea of like, hey, we've got a lot of the same women. How do we add women to the story and make the women who've been here the whole time feel new as well? And I think that
right.
this has been cool. Nikki, obviously, that's been big. Big fan of
Which
Nikki Cross.
Nikki Cross is teasing a lot of sanity online,
Well, so
and
part of
Eric
her
Young's not
thing,
on Impact.
Eric Young's not an Impact. No one ever signed Alexander Wolf or Damo,
Hmm.
but I think it's possible, but I don't think it's an absolute by any means, because I do think that part of what made um, Nikki's new look very interesting was that she was talking about embracing everything that in who she was into who she is now, because she had the Sanity logo on her back, but she still had the Nikki ASH on the chest,
Well, and that's great because Nikki, is an amazing talent. Uh, I mean, look at her. She went from crazy psycho to I'm a superhero in a matter of 6 months. That's
Yeah,
amazing. That hats off to her. And she's a history major, believe it or not.
that's dope.
She's going for her master's. Like she's
Yeah.
super smart, super talented. Uh,
Yeah.
if they brought back Sanity, I think Sanity would be a better fit for Judgment Day feud rather than the OC. I think the OC needs to go more after the Bloodline. I think that would make more sense to me. Yeah, that was a hot take, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
but I mean, it'd be cool, but I almost feel like you'd want to build up to that, but at the same time, maybe you don't because you let everything else simmer. So,
Well,
um,
that's one of those things where you can have the Bloodline do their own thing. Gallows and Anderson can do because they should have been booked better. They started out booked really strong,
yeah,
and then they just kind of shit on them.
yeah.
AJ Styles was champion outside of 6 months, and then they just kind of shit on him. Um,
And I do like the addition of Mia Yim into the club. I think that what would be cool about Sanity too is
yeah,
that you're now having a ton of groups have a woman with men. Sanity being what it was originally could be really cool
yep,
too, because then it's another one of those groups, which makes them all that more compelling to me.
yeah, the Twisted Sister of NXT.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
and that was why they put her in a program with Alexa. We know that was because of her finisher,
Yeah.
like because that's a very Vince McMahon thing to do.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let's see the
I
match.
don't.
What's this? Go ahead.
I do not personally care about Street Profits,
Yeah, me
and
neither.
like it's not that they're not good. It's not that their promos are not great, but I feel like they're a retired gimmick of the same shit that we've seen over and over again.
Hmm. I
they
find
they can
them
be,
to be just super annoying.
yeah,
They feel
because
like
that's the same
kids
shit.
yelling and jumping up and down. Look at me, look at me, look at me. But they're not providing anything. Look what I can do. But they're just like jumping up and kicking the air. Like, yeah, I
Look
super
at my
out on the
red
kid profit.
cups.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're just hyper obnoxious, loud for no reason, and
Yeah,
whatever.
unnecessary. Like
Yeah.
they could be so much more if they just stop putting that "we want the smoke" bullshit, because the average viewer does not give a shit.
I also don't mind the catchphrase and the way that they end their promos with "We want the smoke." It's just their unnecessary loudness, and they come off super phony in so many ways.
Yeah,
Like, I just don't think I would get along with them in general. Like, I think there'd be a personality clash. Like,
they.
they're probably very
I
nice. They're probably, I mean, I've met them. They've been very nice to me, but yeah, they're also not yelling in my face when I've met them in person versus the way they yell at the camera so much that I'm all like, what are we doing?
I feel like something they could have pulled the gun on is that, Bianca gets in a position, she's got a couple of dudes that are going to beat her ass, and then the Street Profits show up. I mean, they did it once, and it was one of the best matches all three of them have ever had.
Mm,
And they never touched it again.
mm,
Like, shit her get off the pot. Like,
yeah,
everybody knows who she's married to, everybody knows what's going on, and that's fine. But
yeah,
make it matter.
yeah,
If you're gonna break kayfabe, make it matter.
yeah.
Um,
Let's see the end of the show though. Rollins and Bobby Lashley, I thought was dope. I do really like that we are going this route where Bobby Lashley's like a little unhinged. He attacked a ref again. Adam Pearce says, "You've left this out of my hand. You're fired." Fires Bobby
mm,
Lashley. Obviously, like you said, I don't think any of us believe that Bobby Lashley is fired, but it does make it interesting in how they're going to bring him back. I've seen people discuss it, and I don't know, but I could see it. Do you think that they're building towards him and MVP back together? That MVP gets him his
no,
job back?
no, I think this is gonna be as similar to Brock Lesnar, because gonna take you back in the time warp. Brock Lesnar did the same thing. And it was one of those ways they tried to legitimize him as a badass, where Lesnar would show up, kick everybody's ass, and he would get chased off by like security and whatnot. I think that we're going to see more of that,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine because Lashley is a legitimate badass.
Yep.
But I think there are several other ways that they could do it without it being repetitive.
Mm,
And I know there's a booking corner where, you have two different bookers. You're still trying to like one's trying to undo the other. And that's a thing. But at that same juncture, you don't have to do that at the risk of the talent.
yeah.
Uh, there really isn't. Like NXT, the one thing that's nice about that is that you've had two different bookers. You've had Triple H, you have Shawn Michaels, and they might not have necessarily agreed in the way that things should have been pushed, but at least there was some cohesion that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Triple H stepped into 1980 style booking to bring it up to 2020 standards, and that caused its own issues. Like there's just a complete disconnect.
Yeah.
You
Man.
know, I
I
I'm
like
here
this
for
version
what.
of Bobby, and I do think he's
Yeah.
better on the mic than he's ever been. And so
hmm
I
He
don't
was
think he
always
needs
that
a
good.
mouthpiece. Hmm?
Yeah, he was always that good. They just needed to let him go. I've seen his other work.
Yeah.
He was a badass you believed in, and he could have done it anywhere. But they held him back in his initial run.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, his initial 2 runs.
You
So when he
know,
came back in
and,
that whole program with Sammy was a massive disconnect too. But
mm,
I think, like you said, he's a legitimate badass, and now we're seeing it in a way that's really cool. I'm excited to see where this one goes. I think that
yeah.
his story is very interesting. I think the LA Knight Bray Wyatt's really interesting because I don't think you can totally call it. Like you got an idea of where we're going, but it's hard to pinpoint how we're getting there. Makes
And
it exciting to see those things.
what's part of nice about that is one of the guys who's behind the scenes is one of their internet production people. And they've turned the Bray Wyatt plot into an ARG, which is an altered alternate reality sort of thing where, fans are now taking pictures coming off of videos and going to websites and trying to
Mhm.
unlock clues and the White Rabbit. And it adds another layer that has never really been in professional wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, much in the same way of Bray Wyatt cutting promos on himself. Like, how often do you see that? And this is the madness that is genius.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, his dad's the IRS. Like, what the fuck happened there? Uh, I think we're gonna see because we've already got the Wyatt Six gimmick. There's some tie-ins to one of his really good friends, and shit, I'm sorry. There's a lot of tie-ins to the OG Wyatt family and everything else there, and like in terms of WWE, I think things that surrounding Bray Wyatt right now are where the most viewership comes from, and they're gonna lean into that hard. And we're just at that point who are fans. Like there are still podcasts based purely around his existence.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, much in the same way as where they did the same shit with CM Punk.
Oh yeah.
And that guy's in a whole shitload of what the hell.
Yeah.
There's been calls of AJ Lee, and tell me if you remember this. Maybe, we're not looking at my false memory here. AJ Lee once cut a promo on the Bellas saying that talent was not sexually transmitted.
hmm
Because AJ Lee was one of the best talkers in the women's division, bar none, period. Like, Bliss can act, but AJ Lee had those mic skills.
hmm
And these are a lot of things that I think we need as fans. We need a reason to give a
Yeah.
damn. And having somebody who's just taking what's so modern and taking what's so old school and putting it together in a package is kind of what we need. Like, Lashley turning into this vigilante badass, like a Batman style character. That can go from picking his opponents to keeping his job to fighting Adam Pearce, Adam Pearce, great competitor.
Isn't it
Very
crazy?
talented.
We have Bobby Lashley at 46 years old, finally getting booked like 2002 Brock Lesnar, like a
Yeah.
21-year-old Brock.
And
And you look at him and you think, yeah, he could have just as long as a career. Like we think we have another 20 plus years with Bobby. It's crazy.
What bothers me about Bobby is we have this Saturday, which I'm going to put a bug in here about that. We have the tribute to the troops.
hmm
Bobby is a legitimate United States military veteran.
hmm
Why do you fire him the show before? Because he better have some sort of appearance. Because that's the kind of thing you want to press upon. Like Lacey Evans, and I am loving the promo packages for Lacey.
Yeah.
She's one of the few women, and I can tell you, being Department of the Navy, for those who may not know, the Marines are part of that same department. I can tell you what she did is bar none very impressive as an individual. The sassy Southern Belle stuff I felt was a counter, but if they go into this right, they need to turn her into this generation's Alundra Blaze. She needs to be patriotic. She needs to be a badass. She needs to lean into that veteran status.
hmm
And Bobby needs to do the same. And if they do the mixed tag stuff on Facebook like they did the last few years, you've got a team right there of two veterans. You've got this Saturday with tribute to the troops. You should have, that going on.
hmm
You got to lean into it. You can't just ignore it because Lashley's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
He's been in 3 major televised companies. The dude is a beast. Like he's
I
a
did think it was
beast.
funny during the Lacey promo. It was producer lady's first chance to see it, and she's been very critical of Lacey as a female vet herself. It was funny because she saw the new promo package and she goes, okay. We can see where this goes. She's like, she wouldn't have her hair in a ponytail, but okay. She's like, where's that military bun?
She's not wrong. Why don't you have your hair up? Why you're not even in full uniform? The fuck is wrong with you?
Yep.
I needed to buy your producer lady all the alcohol she's ever on the East Coast.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like,
I do think with that we'll go ahead and do last call and wrap this one up. I got to get to a few things here, and I think we did cover Raw and SmackDown and a little bit of the news.
Hell, we covered NXT a little bit too.
Yeah, we talked a good chunk about NXT, but if you want to hear a little more in-depth NXT and AEW, that's going to be tomorrow night. Amanda Jane is back to the dive bar when we break down AEW and NXT right here in the dive bar of the IWC. Digi, you want to tell people where they can find you or anything?
I mean, you can find me in a lot of Twitch chats of female professional wrestlers because women's wrestling matters.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what brand. Digi Damon, as you can see, no dash. I am SUI Silverman on Twitch. You can also reach me at Mad Mod Squad because I am a moderator for Medusa, the Hall of Famer, badass lady. But beyond that, I mean, you can find me anywhere. Just look for the name.
Sounds good. And you can find us right here in the dive bar of the IWC. Guys, until tomorrow, that's the last call.
And thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, producer lady here. Thanks for tuning in. Continue to support us or buy us a drink by following and putting the I in subscribe on Twitch. Or subscribe and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. Cheers!
I would never have a drink with wrestling on the rocks.